All right, hello and welcome back to another tutorial in Maya. Today what we're going to take a look at is attaching some images to a spotlight. A really simple process, but it can yield some really cool effects depending on what you do with this. So as you see here, I just have some spotlights, 1, 2, 3, 4 spotlights, and basically I've just attached an image to that spotlight. So now the spotlight acts as sort of like a projector, and so you can project images or image sequences onto any type of geometry in your scene. So here it's pretty much a mishmash of stuff. I just sort of attached the a couple of various images, but the real fun comes when you animate the properties of your light itself. So what would happen in this case is I've just basically added some keyframes to the lights to make them spin around. No big deal. But now we're in a disco or some sort of weird world. But you can see the possibility of basically it's called a gobo. And a gobo in photography or for stage is sort of used to replicate shadows or throw a moving kind of shadowy effect against a back wall or something like that. And in this case, these gobos are just color gobos that are sort of projecting the images onto two different planes, a background plane and a floor plane. So there you go. And you'll notice that this one down here is not animated. This light right here is static because I basically have an image sequence attached to that. So this right here is an image sequence with the logo here and this movement here. So essentially you can attach videos or an image sequence, not necessarily a video, but attach an image sequence. And in this case you'll notice that in this file 3, this image sequence right here, I have the use image sequence enabled. And you want to make sure that you're sort of using your image sequence if you are attaching an image sequence to a spotlight. All right, so we're going to go through this and show you the process of quickly hooking up a picture to a light, but just keep in mind that you're going to animate those lights to do a whole bunch of different kinds of effects. Let's say you had a scene where it was like a city scene or something like that, and you wanted to have some bright highlights and some other things sort of reflect against the glass and the walls and stuff like that. You could easily create a whole nother dimension of reality by just attaching the right image. And it can be an abstract image, it could be a real image. But in the case of abstract organics like reflections and stuff in a city, your texture pattern or your image that you would attach to here might just look like some black and white dots and whatever. So just keep that in mind. There's all sorts of different stuff you can do with this. So you might need something on your background that sort of is throwing shadow colors and highlights and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be defined. Okay, so let's take a look. We'll just go to a new project and we will create this from scratch. All right, so before we do that though, make sure that you always go over to lesterbanks.com. Check him out because he's cool. He finds good stuff for your brain on the internet every day. Maya, After Effects, a whole range of stuff. So anything interesting CG wise, you want to go to Lester Banks and check him out daily because he always has new stuff. All right, check this out. Let's just sort of save this. Let's save this scene. And I think what I'll do is just open up a new project, or I mean a new scene, or actually a scene that I've started already. And I think that's this one right here. All right, continue. Okay, so if you set a scene up, just go ahead and create like a sphere maybe, and create a background, just a background plane. There it is. And then I have one spotlight here. So that's sort of, a good starting point. All right, and once you do that, let's get back up here to the front. Let's go over to the hypershade for a second. And let's look at our lights so far. In here, I have the spotlight shape 1. And I'm going to go ahead and just graph that. So we'll go to input and output. There it is. Let's bring it down here. And the first thing we want to do is grab a 2D texture file, something that we want to attach to this spotlight shape. So in this case, I think mine is in the, let's see, where is it? Might be down here. Yeah, all the way down. That was a long image sequence. Let's just try something like this. This is a good example. I'm going to go ahead and hit open. And now it's attached that image file, or in this case, it's an image sequence, to our texture. So there we go. Now, all you have to do is just bring middle mouse button, drag and drop it on top of your spotlight shape, and specify its color channel. And now we should have an image that is hooked up to our color channel. So that's great. And since this is an image sequence, if you were to say go back to the beginning and just hit play, nothing will happen because we have to specify now that that's an image sequence. All right. So let's come back over here and let's take a look at our file and come down and click on Use Image Sequence. All right. Now we're ready to go. So if we go back to the beginning of the animation and you play, there you go. So essentially we have this already attached. It's playing. Just make sure that you set your timeline to the amount of whatever is in your image sequence. If it's 1,000 frames, set it at 1,000 frames, and that is it. And the same process applies to just attaching a still image to a spotlight, and that's what you're going to get. Now what I've done here is I've added a sphere in just to show you sort of the differences, because when you have the light is basically shining onto the sphere, and it's also projecting onto the back the back plane here, so you can kind of have some variance there. And if you were to say take your let's grab this guy and move him back and forth, see that you get the distortions of whatever surface it's being projected onto. So there you go. Pretty easy stuff. And remember that you may want to create some different materials. In this case, I think I have a Lambert 2, and watch what happens when we basically assign the Lambert 2 to the back plane back there. I'm just going to go ahead and assign that. Well, because the Lambert 2 is a bright color, that's my whitish color. You want to make sure you get the right matching background surface. And you can play around with your various color values of whatever you put on the back there for controlling some of the exposure elements and stuff. And that's about it. It can't be any simpler, but you can see what possibilities there are once you start using these. You can just animate your stuff to, you could animate the light itself to move around. Let's see if we could just turn that a little bit. Yeah, so you can set different levels and different ways that it'll project off onto the surface, and you can animate this light over time, and it'll do fun stuff. Okay, so there it is. That's just a quick tip, something to have fun with in your spare time, and play around with it. It has many, many, many uses, but remember, imagination is the key here. You want to use your imagination, put on your creative thinking hat. All right. Okay, well, that's about it. And as always, read a book and be a good person. And I mean that. Be a good person. Do something nice for somebody today, all right? And there you go. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you for the next one.